You are listening to a Life in Quebec podcast. For more, visit lifeinquebec.com.
Taxes on bathroom tissue, but not on a dozen donuts. What's with that? Yep. It would appear you can buy a dozen donuts and not pay a cent of sales tax, which is nice if you like donuts. You will, however, have to pay tax on the toilet paper that you will eventually need if and when those donuts, or at least what's left of them, are digested and consequently ejected from your body. Now that may sound gross, but think about it and you realize just how ridiculous Canada's tax system can be. We in Canada are a fortunate lot, and life is good here, except when it comes to paying taxes. We have a federal sales tax, a provincial sales tax, and or a supposedly harmonized sales tax. Whatever you want to call it, it's extra money we pay for almost everything we buy or use. It's not even called sales tax anymore. It was renamed Goods and Services Tax early in the new millennium. But it's really the same game with a different name. We're not only taxed now on things we buy, but also on the services we use. How pathetic is that? The government's argument, of course, is a good one, explaining that all those social programs we enjoy have to be paid for somewhere, somehow, and especially by someone. But let's be sensible. When the new tax was implemented, it was divided into essential and non-essential items, with the essential items supposedly being exempt, which brings me back to the toilet paper. Apparently in Canada, toilet paper is not essential because it's taxed, and on the contrary, a dozen donuts is, because it's not taxed. Either way, you're still paying tax on those donuts, only later. If that's not ridiculous enough, we're also taxed on the amount of electricity we use and on the heating oil to heat our houses. And this is when I really start to fume. You receive a bill for your heating oil of, let's say, $624, which I suppose is reasonable, although the price of oil is also a debatable one in itself. And on top of that amount, there's GST and PST, around $31 and $62 respectively, amounting to $93 on the total bill. So you're paying an extra $93 just to have the privilege of being able to heat your house and stay comfortable, or basically stay in your house without freezing to death. Is that fair in countries like Canada, where winter plays a major role in our everyday lives? Imagine if someone died in their house because they froze to death. Would the Revenue Department be liable for unpaid taxes causing bodily harm or death? One thing for sure, the person would have died having not paid those taxes, and the two things do go together. It would be written on the death certificate, death by taxes. Very appropriate, I would say. If you have a business or use your house as an office, you can claim a certain amount of those taxes collected on your annual income tax forms, which is also nice. But the average person doesn't have a business or an office in their living quarters, so they, or we, simply pay all those taxes and just sit on our butts and complain about them. The old expression about death and taxes being the only two things we're really sure of in life is becoming more and more a reality, as everything in general is costing more, consequently raising the taxes, which subsequently is making us poorer and giving us less buying power. But there's where the ball stops bouncing, because the less we buy, the fewer taxes we're going to pay. That's why, for a government, it makes sense to tax things like electricity and shoes, because we have to, one way or another, keep ourselves warm and preferably walk around our cities with something on our feet, unless we live in the Caribbean and walk around on a beach all day. Tax problems and the way they're levied, etc., is an international problem, but when it comes to taxing us on items like electricity, heating oil, and even shoes, it makes you wonder sometimes just what is important for survival according to a government. In wrapping up, if you had bought that dozen donuts one donut at a time, you would have paid tax on each one. So the best thing is to buy the dozen and eat them one at a time, knowing you've screwed the government with every bite you take. And your toilet paper will last a lot longer too.
Thank you for listening to the Life in Quebec podcast. For more news, commentary, editorials, and opinion, visit lifeinquebec.com/podcast.